Sorry about that, family. Welcome back to my secondary channel, the number one grinder, real talk. Yours truly, the number one grinder. Um, this is the underrated MMA sports talk number 39. We got my brother Derek in here, and what we going to do? Let me read this out first. Hit you with this intro. We gonna get it going. All right, just remember us as the righteous ones. We are still winners. That's the real. That's the real. So let's get it going. Let's get it going. Let's get it going. Play the short intro. Be back.
Welcome to my channel, the underrated darkness, yours truly, the underrated one, the number one grinder, the best kept secret in YouTube.
I'm back. I'm back. Got my brother D in the picture. How you feel, brother?
I'm good, man. How you doing, brother? How'd you like the tank fight?
That's all I can say. I said round 6 too.
Good call. Good call. I mean, it played out in a fun fashion. I love how it ended.
Yeah, exactly. That's exactly. We're gonna talk a little more about that a little later on. But welcome to my channel, the secondary channel, the number one grinder, real talk. This is your show, number one grinder. This is the underrated MMA sports talk, and George should be here any minute. We're gonna talk about MMA, but we are gonna talk about the Tank and Roman
Raleigh.
fight for Riley. We're gonna talk about that a little bit, and I will talk about that probably most likely probably beginning of the week, so watch out for that and everything. We was talking about some MMA yesterday and stuff like that. Before we get into the matches from last week up to now and stuff, tell the people we was talking about MMA yesterday of different styles and stuff, and also the why the trainers is not matching their intensity and stuff like that.
Yeah, I mean, Grinder, the thing is, look, there's so many styles in MMA, right? It's impossible for a trainer to know them all. I mean, literally impossible. And then, you got it worse that, a lot of people are faking it, right? They don't mind coming around. It's a new sport. Maybe they were a cardio boxing coach, right? And all of a sudden, they're showing an MMA guy who might be a great wrestler, great jiu-jitsu guy how to box. And the truth is, they don't really know how to box themselves. And man, listen, I've seen it over and over again. We're talking about guys in UFC corners, but look, that's how life is, man. If you got a slick game, if you can talk fast, you can hustle people. And look, so it's a little different than boxing. Boxing is very much a street corner, comes from the participants. You got a lot of college wrestlers in there. So all it comes is the fraudsters different. They're ex-college football players and stuff like that. It's just a different game, man, a different scam. But yeah, I mean, look, we can't avoid that. It's human nature. People are gonna love being stroked. Fighters are like that. A lot of fighters have big egos. And if you're the right trainer, you can get in their ear and get in their head. You can get in their corner.
That's good. That is so true. That's so true. So let's talk. Let's get in some MMA talk. Oh, there you go. The one we talk up to Brother George in the building. Introduce yourself, please.
Good evening, folks. This is me, all the way George Page, aka the Emperor of Female Boxing Talk, Emperor of WMMA Talk, and the Emperor of Wrestling Talk. Also, I am better known as the Perfect Sage, or also you might know me as the Joker.
Yeah, that's what's up. Yeah, that's what's up. Yeah. All right. Now.
Why so serious, son?
You funny.
Hello.
Yeah. Introduce yourself. It's old George Page. We got the one and only Demis. I know you remember him, do you?
Was he on here with us last time?
Nah, he came up here like he was on here like months ago. On MMA talk.
Oh, it's been a while. How you doing?
Good, man. How you doing, Joker?
Thank you. I'm doing fine. I just, been busy creating anarchy.
All right, good. I think George, we found a regular. Brother Derek.
Well, that's great. That's great. We need people who really can give some knowledge, because I'm kind of limited at some levels. I do watch a lot of MMA, not as much as other people. And my channel, I do a lot of stuff. Basically, I do a lot of stuff to support the women, because, like I said, the guys get way more attention compared to the women, and they need it because the fact is, they work just as hard and they put in just as much work as the men. But everybody knows that. Everybody comes see the guys. It's kind of like because I do stuff for bodybuilding. It's about like with bodybuilding. Everybody pay attention to the men, but the women kind of bring them in.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. All right, let's get into some MMA. We start from you, Brother Derek. Which fighters that you watched lately that are good or not so good? Now, you see the thumbnail that I put up.
Well, look, I mean, I want to jump off what the Joker said, and I'll say this. The Joker said women's MMA. And, one thing about women's MMA, we remember Dana White said, I don't know, 10, 15 years ago, women will never fight in the UFC. And it's kind of funny. The guy who saw the future for MMA and the UFC was blind as to the next step. And the next step was women. It was less than a year and a half later when he had Ronda Rousey in the UFC. He had bought Strikeforce and he made her his champ. And, I dare say before Conor McGregor, Ronda was Dana's biggest star. Holly Holm knocking Ronda out in Australia was devastating for White. And I'll tell you this, I saw Holly Holm fight in San Diego against Renee, what was her name? I don't know.
Mary Renault.
Who was it, Joker?
Mary Renault.
That's it. And by the way, Holly looked terrible in the fight. And that's what got her the fight against Ronda. Sometimes you got to look bad. Look, I remember Evander Holyfield was chasing Mike Tyson for years. And finally he took a fight against Bobby Chiz. And, Holyfield always fights to the level of his opponent. He looked bad enough against Chiz that Tyson thought, oh, he's shot, I'll fight him now. And that's what they did with Holly Holm. They got her in there because they thought Ronda would have another knockout. And then Ronda knocked her out. Now, very sadly, Holly Holm lost this Saturday. So if we're talking about fights I've seen recently, Grinder, it was Holly going out. But, look, it's always a young man's sport, young woman's sport. There's always going to be a new gun.
Mm-hmm. That's the thing about Holly, because Holly been fighting since I remember watching Holly when she was boxing. She used to fight like she was back then. She fought Chevelle Halsback. She fought who else she fought? A couple other fighters I'm trying to remember. And I remember one lady I was talking to. I was Facebook friends with Chevelle Hallsback, and she said she wanted a rematch with with Sheena Riker, but Holly Holm gave her a rematch because just Holly Holm. I thought Holly Holm was more like she was about a runner when she was boxing. And we all remember when she fought that chick from France years ago, and they were fighting in because she fought mostly in New Mexico, and
May or whatever her name was, right? For the 145-pound title.
no, this is back in boxing. I'm thinking about back in boxing.
Okay.
Remember back in boxing, she fought the French chick. This, Grinda GDR, she's from Netherlands, and yeah, that fight they were supposed to try to set up the 145 division, and they would put Holly as their top gun, but Jermaine, as you know, is a former Muay Thai fighter. She just kind of just beat Holly to them. People talk about that last minute punch, but that happens sometimes. You see it in fights, Derek, when that before the bell rings, like a little after the bell rings, fighters hit the last second. And Holly, she just wasn't that complete of a fighter. She had lack wrestling. That's how come Misha Tate choked her out. Then she fought against Valentina Shevchenko, who was a smaller fighter, who was fighting pretty much out of her weight class. And Holly, she was, took it apart by Valentina because Valentina is a chess master playing with checker players.
Yeah.
And then, that was like she was on a 4-fight losing streak. Then she gets a behind the win when she beats one of my favorite fighters, Betch Correia, with a head kick. But Betch, she had that fight. She was winning that fight. And Betch did a stupid thing by dropping her hands and goating Holly. And Holly always used that. She's a one-trick pony. She always used that head kick. And, and then she gets knocked out and beat by Amanda Nunes.
Yeah, so Joker and Grinder, tell you what's funny is I had a stablemate when I was still kickboxing in the 90s at Black Tiger in San Diego named Lisa Morrison. And she actually fought Holly back when Holly was a kickboxing world champion. And let me tell you something, Lisa Morrison was tough and Holly beat her. So, Holly was a really tough kickboxer. I didn't watch her so much in boxing, but as a kickboxer, she knew what she was doing. And look, Betch Correia is short. It doesn't surprise me that Holly kicked her in the head just like she did Ronda.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, because Ronda was also like a one-trick pony because the only thing Ronda had was that arm bar. Now, remember when she fought Kat Zingano, and Kat had the opportunity because she beat the shit out of Amanda Nunes. She beats up Misha Tate. She had opportunity to beat, but she rushed it too fast. Because I think that was the year when her husband killed himself, and I think her mind wasn't in the area, and then she gets submitted 6 seconds into the first round.
About that.
Yeah, and Petch, she fought Holly, and not Holly, she fought Ronda, and Ronda knocked her out. And Betch was a better striker. She used to be a boxer. She did shoot boxing back in Brazil, and she gets knocked out by Holly Holm. I mean, not by Holly Holm, by Ronda Rousey.
Yeah, I mean, look, Ronda was very aggressive. Look, I'll never forget when Ronda was in the fight with Holly down in Australia. Her corner, Tarvidian, who was the same kickboxing circuit me and Holly were on, back then, kept telling Ronda, yeah, just keep going forward. Just you got her. You're going to knock her out in a minute. And it was so funny because that's the kind of bad trainer stuff we see in MMA. You know what I mean? Look, I should have seen it coming. Holly was a striker her whole life, and Ronda really had nothing to match that. Technically she was out of her game, and that head kick was nasty, man, when it finally went down. But, shame on the corner for not telling Ronda to try to get her down or pull her in her world or something.
Because you remember I think her trainer was what's his name? I knew the guy's name because her mother, her mother never liked him. I think it was Edmund.
It's Edmund Tarvidian.
Yeah, Edmund,
Armenian kickboxer in LA.
Mm-hmm. And she said her mother said, "Don't be with him. Leave him alone. He's just the worst trainer." Some said that maybe they were, come say come sa, him and Ronda, and that's not healthy to be in a relationship because I have a friend named Coach Sarah Harrison. We talk about MMA, especially about the women, and we say that like with Rose Namajunas and her relationship with Pat Barry, they were too close. And the thing with the corner, you gotta be like Mick from Rocky, you get your ass kicked, Rocky. You can't lose this round. You can't lose. You should be in your person up the ass of your fighter. You can't be giving them like, oh wow, you can get this fight. You can get this fight. I remember I was watching when a fight where it said where the corner people were telling the fighter, say, you're losing, you're losing, you're losing. You're behind the points. You're losing. You can't. You're losing, losing. And people say, why you say that to that fight? You shouldn't say that. No. You have to say that to them, because if you try to be too nice to them or tell them like, yeah, you got this fight. You got this fight in the pocket. If you're not unless they're really sure you got this fight, they'll tell you got the fight. But they feel like there's some doubt, like especially the fight with Holly and Caitlin. There was some doubt that they would pull out, and they were telling Caitlin, you're losing this fight. You're losing this fight. You got to come up behind. You got to win this fight. And Holly, she's with Jackson Winklejohn, and that is probably one of the worst gyms around. I don't, it's just, there's other than they had was John Jones, and now they don't have him anymore. They got they still got Michelle Water, I call her Michelle Waterhead, and she's been, other than her last fight when she fought against Angela Hill, when she won, she was pretty much on a couple of fight losing streaks, and they just got Holly, and then the rest of the fighters, they barely get attention because it was mostly focused on either Holly or John.
Yeah, no, I mean, look, so first of all, about Tarvidian and Ronda, I didn't know that, but now some of the things I saw between them make a lot of sense that you say that, Joker. I didn't know that, but yeah, it fits the narrative. As far as the Winklejohn, Jackson Winklejohn gym, there's always going to be big gyms like that because look, everything at the end of the day is a business. But I agree with you. Big gyms aren't necessarily the ones that create the stars or should be there or the most valuable for the stars. For a long time in boxing, right? The gyms center around one guy. One guy is the elite fighter there. MMA gyms are sort of like that, but not really. It's almost like a team concept. It's one of the reasons what I think it was Covington, if I'm not mistaken, left Top Team in Florida, and he went to Sanford MMA or something where he could be the main guy, where they could concentrate on him. But yeah, I agree, man. Those big gyms are not always good. Very interesting though. Both Watterson, who you bring up, and Holly both fight with that traditional sidekick, which is kind of funny when you think about it. They're both at the same gym and whatnot. But, look, Winklejohn was a great kickboxing coach. I think Jackson's a great self-promoter, and there you go.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, because Winklejohn's pretty good as a coach. Jackson, he's just there for, I don't know what's the purpose of him.
Have you seen him? He'll mimic the accent of his fighters in the corner. If they're Irish, he'll suddenly talk with an Irish accent. If they're Russian, he'll suddenly talk with a Russian accent. I love it, man. It's hilarious.
I mean, why do you need to do that? I mean, as long as your fighters speak English to them. I mean, it's one thing you need a translator. It's not like you're Mackenzie Dern who goes in with a fake translator, knowing that you're born in the valley in Arizona and you speak, you try to pass your stuff off as Brazilian, even though yes, your father's Brazilian, but when you talk, because I watched videos of her, when you talk before, you sound like a little white, like I was like really, and then she all of a sudden she sounds like she thinks she's Brazilian. She had translators in the ring with her. Girl, what the hell are you translating for? You speak English.
Brother, you brought it up with Kat Zingano earlier. One of the things about MMA, because jiu-jitsu was such an integral part of it, there's become this sort of fascination with the culture. The Brazilians have their own sort of unique culture in itself. And, there's always going to be admirers. There's always going to be people that fake it. Suddenly they talk differently. They act differently. They say they were. Wasn't it Alec Baldwin's wife that said she was Spanish or something? It turned out to be from New York or I don't know.
It's like I try to think of it was some actor saying they're from here, from one country, and come to find out they were actually from somewhere like the Midwest, and it's just because they went over there for a couple of years and study and stuff like that, then they fake the accent.
I think that was Alec Baldwin's wife. I think it was an actress. I think it
was
okay. Very recent.
Oh yeah, it's just you just can't it's like it don't make sense. You know where you're from. Just admit I'm from. Like I said, I'm from North Carolina. And when I speak, people ask me, where you from? Because you don't have that heavy southern accent. I don't say y'all. I don't say far. No, what I was when I was a kid, my older sister used to make us watch educated television because we were running around. My mother and dad had to work, and she was the oldest, so she watched us younger kids, and and I was the youngest out of them at the time. And because I was running around like a kid, she tied me up the chair and made me watch PBS. And I don't have that heavy Southern accent where I say y'all or far. I say fire. I don't fake it. It's just something that I gained gradually over time.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, Joker. I mean, listen, man, I grew up back east too, just like Grinder and yourself. I grew up right outside of New York, but I don't have that accent. A lot of people question that sometimes. Say, you're not from back east. Say, yes, I am. I just was educated. Sorry.
Right, yeah. Let me get this in first. Let me salute to Brother King Lion, Z45, and TS Boxing. Yeah, I'm gonna I'll probably do a post fight on that. If you have an email me later on. Then I probably, because that fight is on my birthday, June 4th. But in Australia, it's gonna be on the 5th.
Mhm.
So email me TS Boxing or put your email on one of my latest lives on video.
Yeah. Well, that next Saturday is supposed to be UFC 75, I believe, and it's Testator versus Blackowitz, I believe. I think that's the head fight, and then you have Valentina versus Santos, and then you have the second fight between Zhang and Joanna Jacek, or we call we call Bojangles. What are your thoughts on the main event?
So Jan is fighting in the main event. He's not the champ anymore. It's Glover Teixeira fighting in the main event, I think.
Oh, is this Glover? Okay.
Yeah, because Glover beat Jan. Look, man. I'm a lover of Glover Teixeira. Look, I'm 49 years old, and the guys in the gym always call me old man. I tell them, you don't call me old man. Glover's 43 and he's still doing it. I believe in Glover. I think he's got a great style. I think you learn things in the ring. You learn wisdom. And I think that's exactly what Bernard Hopkins did in boxing. It's what Glover Teixeira did in MMA. And I think he's going to take the fight for sure.
You can't think also, Audrey Orlovsky. He's been coming back. I think he won I think he's been like a 2-3 fight a winning streak since he came back to UFC. And at one point I think he was in line, or I know he had the heavyweight title for a minute, or he was in line for the heavyweight title, but he took a step back, started doing some acting, and now he's coming back. And he might be heading for maybe 2 or 3 months fights for a title shot.
Yeah, no. So I've been really impressed with Arlovsky. I know Chael Sonnen put something out how Arlovsky was a creation by Dana White, that Dana White picked him to make him champion of the UFC. And it's not that I doubt Chael's story. It's just that Arlovsky's hung around so long, whether you like it or not, he very much knows how to fight MMA now. Now, I don't find his fights particularly exciting. It's more like he knows how to negate his opponent and to box him MMA style, and usually stays on the feet and usually gets the win. Listen, man, he was champ of UFC like 15 years ago. The fact that he's still going and almost in line for a title shot is nothing short of miraculous.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, because a lot of guys guys he come up with are long since retired. There's not that many. Dana has his favorites. He has his favorites that he keep on. I think it's like our brother Watcher. He's from down under. He said that he still have George St. Pierre on contract, but George ain't gonna fight again. He's just on contract. Still have the Diaz brothers. When Nick fought a while back against who is he fought with? Is that Robbie Lawler? I think he fought with it. And that was kind of disappointment. They hadn't fight for almost 3 or 4 years, and and he has his favorites, and he keeps the guys on way past their prime. He still has Cowboy Cerrone. He needs to retire. Lawler, he was back in the early days when he had hair. He needs to think about retiring. There's some guys that like I said, there's some guys I do recognize because I used to, I didn't really follow UFC that much. I've been, like I said, I was a boxing fan too, but the last few years boxing kind of faded off a little bit. Tyson retired, Holyfield retired, Roy Jones retired, Mayweather retired. The guys are really superstars back then. I don't really pay attention to the guys too much current now, but with UFC, MMA, I wasn't too bad. Remember like B-Hop, you say about B-Hop. Man, B-Hop made the he called MMA gay sex.
and he called he made
Joker, let me say this. So there was a big rivalry between boxing and MMA when it got started, and there was jealousy on both sides. And I remember Floyd Mayweather. By the way, I'm getting my voice back at me. Is that your side, Joker?
it might be if you don't usually if you have your headphones on, that's what it does. It reverberates back into you, especially if you watch it on the YouTube.
Oh yeah, if you got your YouTube on, that's what it is.
Yeah, because
Let
that
me
it
see if I can
reverberates.
turn. No, I only guys. I'm on the
StreamYard,
what's it called?
the StreamYard.
Yeah, it's all I'm on. Hold on. Let me close every other window though to try to knock this off because it's really hard to complete a thought.
What we're saying
Yeah.
do is like put your YouTube on mute, so and
Right, you put on
StreamYard.
mute, yeah.
Yeah,
Mute that and now eliminate that.
yeah.
Community solutions. Thanks for. Oh, he got on.
Oh, he'll come back. But yeah, but as I said again, most of these fighters, I know people say I got a friend, and she's a fighter. She said when people talk about retirement, but the fact is, generally, some people retire like Frosty Lucky Charms. His he is his legs are pretty much no good. I don't know why he's still trying to fight. If he do come back, somebody's going to break the other leg. He's not careful.
Mhm.
Yeah, and but it's just that the fight game has changed over the last few years,
Mhm.
and particularly, I think some fighters need to really think about their future. And we talk about on Coach's channel how some fighters need to really think about becoming trainers. There's fighters who should think about possibly going to become referees because also judges because they need
Mhm.
judges because sometimes some of the judges have here are judges from boxing,
Mhm.
and those judges for boxing don't understand the whole the mechanics of MMA. Only thing they look at is striking and then the other stuff, and that's about it. They don't look at the overall stuff like when you get on the ground, when you are, when you're grappling, That's why I think some, MMA fighters need to move over to being, because I know there's some referees that used to be MMA fighters like Big John McCarthy was one time. My man Herb Dean, a couple others. I'm always watching something that was on YouTube, and this guy I think it was Charlie Ward. I think he was Charles Ward from I think from over there when Bellator was over in Europe, and then Conor McGregor jumps into the ring, and he was about to fight Mark Goddard. Mark Goddard's a referee. He's from he's British, and I think Mark Goddard probably will beat Conor's behind if he because he had the size advantage.
Yeah, no, I've talked about that size advantage a lot with people, Joker, on my own channels, and they just don't get it because it becomes a hero worship. Conor McGregor is one of the highest paid athletes in the world. Like one year, he was the highest paid. So people can't get it in their minds. Like, listen, that referee's a heavyweight. He'll turn Conor over his knee and spank him.
Yeah, and like I said, Conor. What happened with Conor was when he got that Mayweather fight, that was big money for him. Because I think Mayweather, he don't fight for, he took $100,000 in his pocket. Conor might got like about $50,000, $60,000. UFC gonna take their cut. That's why he didn't fight for almost 2 or 3 years. He was sitting on some big money, and that's the thing about we talk about this how these MMA fighters, if you get to think about if you put the what Conor McGregor makes compared to somebody even like maybe Earl Spence or Tyson Fury, he still doesn't make as much. He's the top MMA fighters don't make as much as maybe a second or third tier boxer.
Yeah, I mean, if the pay structure difference is like how they set it up. Dana White went for ownership of the sport, right? Like he set it up WWF model, like Vince McMahon did. So he owns the fighters' contracts, and they're fighting for his league. And boxing isn't like that. Ever since that I think it was the Muhammad Ali Act when Don King was first getting involved with that USA tournament that he was doing, and it was corrupt, and they wanted to get rid of that. There's good parts and bad parts. I mean, UFC fighters, the lowest pay for them is about 8,000. But at the same time, nobody starts in the UFC. They've been fighting for a little while to get there. An average boxer on his first card, you need like $100 a round. I don't know what the white model is, man. It's really tough.
Mhm.
Yeah, that's true.
hmm Yeah, the thing is that they put in more risk. I have a friend. I have a couple of ladies who have become friendly with over the time. They fight in MMA. One she's right now. She was helping in training camp for Amanda Ribas when she was going to fight Michelle Waters. She was in Brazil, and that was a little money she could make on the side. Another friend, she fought for the title at LFA for a while back. She had to sit out. She had got a knee injury, but now she lives in Vegas and she's doing referee. That's a good way to make some money for a fight camp. And then, like I said, I do a lot most of my channel is good. Part of it is content on bodybuilding and how I talked. I just did an interview with a lady a while ago, and how some of these MMA fighters it had to do OnlyFans to make a change. Recently, Jessica Andrade, she leaked. Somebody said her maid leaked, but I think it was her leaked her photos from an OnlyFans page. People like Jessica, I think a couple other fighters do it because the fact is, women. That's a way so some women can make money because the fact is there's a fetish. There's guys who are into it, and and even the truthfully is like this. Still, the guys will still make more money in the fetish end because there's guys who are, let's say, gay who fantasize about guys like this. You think about someone like John Jones or Cyril Gahn or Francis Nagano or any other top guys. If they can do OnlyFans, they probably make a lot more money than some of the women.
Well, Joker, I mean, absolutely. What you're talking about, the homosexual stuff, has been rampant in the bodybuilding world for a long time. And yeah, I mean, with the advent of social media where these people can make money off of posting pictures, that's going to come around. I mean, look, when you're in the fight game, you're shooting for the stars, right? That's not an average job where you're punching a clock. So, and those kind of photos are like that too. So it doesn't surprise me that some of the better looking ones like Jessica I are getting involved in stuff like that. That's just human nature, man. It's a quick way to make a buck for them. They don't really care anyway. Not a lot of those people are not conservative. A lot of those fighters, they don't care about showing their bodies.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, but like I said, it's just how it is sometimes. If it was if the pay grade was a little better, where which they were making at least let's say the last fight I think Francis Ngannou made a little over $500,000. We fought Senior Khan, and then after taxes and everything else, he might be walking away with maybe 350, maybe 25 or $250,000 out of that. And if he was like getting paid like maybe 2 or 3 million, hey, a lot of these fighters wouldn't have to do it. Is what they want to do. Even if you paid even the guys in the lower end, maybe $100,000, that's a good chunk of change. They don't have to, they don't, when UFC got that contract with Reebok, they lost a lot of their sponsorship.
Yeah.
And then remember there was one guy who was doing an interview. He was wearing Nikes. He told the guy to take off his Nikes because Reebok didn't want to see any of the fighters wearing Nikes. And then now they have a new contract with Venom because remember back in the day, when they used to fight, they used to have their sponsors on their shorts. I think the only ones that still do is like Bellator and Victor. A couple of organizations still do it because UFC, it's a big thing. UFC just got a contract with crypto, but the fighters don't get a cut of that money. Yeah, that's funny. Hey, you make them wear these shirts and stuff, but they're not getting a cut from it.
Well, Joker, when you're talking about Ngannou, let's be honest. I mean, very clearly, that's a big fight because they know what's coming. Ngannou is going to fight Tyson Fury. They're setting it up. Ngannou showed up at Fury's last fight with Dylan White, and everybody knows that fight is on the bubble. And Dana is playing hardball with Ngannou, and I agree. $600,000 to pay your heavyweight champion of the world is absolutely shameful. But Dana was hoping Ngannou was going to drop that fight to Gane and make all of that moot. Unfortunately for Dana, Ngannou fought a brilliant fight against Cyril Gane. He took him down. He wrestled him. It was great game planning at its best, and it shows a lot about Ngannou being able to change. Originally Ngannou was a boxer. He was a kind of a failed boxer that went to MMA. Well, the fact that he was able to wrestle down Cyril Gane, who's a kickboxer, was really, really impressive. I love the way he did it. The other thing you're talking about, the fighters used to make a couple $100,000 those banners and putting sponsors on the trunks, and that all went away in one foul swoop with the UFC bringing in Reebok first, and now Venom. And it's sad. You're not giving the fighters a way to have fair training camps and everything else. And I agree with you. It's a shame.
It is. Yeah, it is. Let's get to the matches in the past. Which y'all looking for last week and this week, please.
Well, like I said, the big fight, like we talked about, was the Holly Holm fight.
Yeah.
I didn't really watch much of it because, like I said, I don't buy the streaming thing. I don't do it because, like I said, I ain't gonna give Dana White not one bit of my dollars. He can he has a contract he's with ESPN now. Show my ESPN free. Why I have to go? Why I have to go on ESPN Plus where you have ESPN? You can show it for free. And they still get paid. But from what I saw, every so often some of the fights they put on ESPN on YouTube, I catch it. I did catch some of the fight of Holly versus Catlin, and that fight I think Catlin did a pretty good. Holly mostly just tried to put her against the cage. I think Holly did get the first round, but Catlin started really lighting her up. Dropping her kicks. I mean, she put on a good fight. There was a possibility that she felt like she's going to lose this fight, but I think she deserved it. I heard people booing at the end of that fight, but the fact was, Holly is getting slower. She's getting older. Father Time comes after you, and she telegraphs her strikes. Every time she does that, hiya, she telegraphs it. It's predictable. You can catch that kick if you're smart enough. You can catch those. You can count those punches if you're smart enough. You can go back and look at her when she fought Valentina Shevchenko. You can look at the blueprint Valentina put up against Holly Holm, and she's fighting a girl who probably was 4 or 5 inches taller than her and really technically outweighed her by 10 or 15 pounds.
Yeah, I mean, look, Joker, in fairness to Holly, I didn't know she fought Shevchenko, but the bottom line is Shevchenko, nobody can beat her. She's a Muay Thai master and, an MMA crossover, probably the best woman fighter there's ever been, to be honest. I don't know about the fight this weekend. It's sad, but listen, Holly was on that card with Lisa Morrison, and I was still actively fighting, which gives you an idea of how long she's been in the sport. And it can be an advantage, like for B Hop, and whatnot. But at a certain time, especially with MMA, there's so many young, hungry girls. It doesn't surprise me that they're catching up to Holly. Yeah, what you're talking about with the shouts, that's a karate layover, brother. That sort of ki, kind of is like a half a breath, half a yell. And some people do it, man. It's just one of those things. But yeah, she's getting predictable. She's getting older.
Yeah. What you thought about they had I think Bellator had that fight between McAvin Page and the what's the guy's name? I forgot. And they had it over England, and people thinking McAvin Page is going to win this fight, but he lost.
Yeah, I mean, what I understand is the guy he fought was a very good wrestler. And, Michael Venom Page is very much, he's Bellator's version of, Adesanya or Anderson Silva. And, he's one of those type of martial artists. And, wrestlers can do a lay and pray on you real easily. I know Scott Coker didn't agree with the decision, but that's because, wrestlers in MMA are not money makers. It's the equivalent of, a cutesy boxer that no one wants to see. People want to see the smash knockouts with the high kicks and stuff Michael Venom Page does. So, of course, Coker doesn't think Page lost that fight. It's endemic. Promoters never want to see their cash cows lose.
Yeah. So you guys, like that's the thing is it's if you put you can't put your eggs into one basket. You gotta reinvest into this fighter. He might fight somebody who's a real smash and bash guy and probably might lose the title, and then they might set up a rematch for Venom Page or another shot for the title. It's all depending because he is a big. But the thing is, he wouldn't last long in UFC. We all know that.
No, I mean, and you saw that they did a fake Conor McGregor in Bellator also. I forget his name, but it was an Irish guy that was clearly the promotional was after him, and he got knocked out eventually too. There's only so much scripting you can do in actual fighting. And by the way, you can do a lot. I mean, I'll give the boxing example. Julio Cesar Chavez Jr. was not really a fighter, but with his father's name and the right promotion, he came within one punch of knocking out Sergio Martinez for the linear middleweight title. So, you can make magic happen. The problem is you got another hungry guy across, and you can match a guy as good as you can. But at the end of the day, a fight is a fight, man. And your choice is not always going to win. But, in MMA, it's been a lot better than in boxing. Like in boxing, a promoter who's promoting Tank or promoting Ryan Garcia, everything is on those guys. So a loss for those guys is huge. In MMA, it used to be nobody really cared. Well, you win or you win and still have got a promotion. But of course, that takes out the animal spirits like the star power, the Conor McGregor, the Ronda Rousey. And, when those guys lose, promoters lose, businesses lose, just the way it is.
Yeah, that's how it is in any kind of sport. There's been several fighters who've been like, remember Tommy the Gun Morrison. He was the great nephew of John Wayne. He fought who was it he fought? I saw that fight years ago. And he fought this guy.
His biggest win was Donovan Ruddock, actually. He fought George Foreman too.
Mm-hmm. And Foreman beat, that time Foreman was beating these young guys. He beat God, I forgot his name. I know his name. I used to know his name. I used to know his fighter's name. Most of them not even around anymore. But yeah, he was coming back after being. He's 40 years old. He's not as good a shape he was, but he was beating these young guys. He's doing pretty good. The thing is, when you have to invest, you just can't just put, like I said again, you can't put all your eggs in one basket. You can't invest into like a Conor McGregor who just got his leg snapped. You can't invest too much into John Jones, who's right now we're gonna fight. He put to fight Stipe sometime by the end of the summer, and then also you can put your eggs into just Ronda, because you look at what happened to her. She gets beat by Holly Holmes, come back, get busted up by Amanda Nunes. Now she's over in wrestling, and then you put all your stock into Holly, and Holly's on a 4-fight losing streak, and then she just gets knocked out by Amanda Nunes and gets beat by Vieira. It's just, you have to really invest in all your fighters. Even the ones you see as prospects, but don't put too much scope to prospects, because there's been fighters I've seen that come in, or they're a big thing, they're a big this, big that, and next like boom, they just fell short.
Yeah, I mean that's the fight game, right? And inconveniently, it's not scripted like the WWE, right? So Vince McMahon doesn't get to decide who's going to be champion, and it's always going to be like that in the fight game. But there will always be promoters' darlings, whether it's Ronda or whether it's Conor or the next one. I'm sure we're coming up on the next one. And it just is what it is. And who knows why Dana or other promoters make the decisions they do. I'll tell you this, Dana hated the Diaz brothers. He said about Nate specifically, he's not a needle mover. I think it was really a reflection, just like about women's MMA, Dana missing the future. Like, people relate to the Diaz brothers because they're like Beavis and Butthead, right? They feel like, oh, that's me. That's my little brother, right? And they like that. But Dana didn't see it that way. Dana was still looking for that next, Anderson Silva, the one who's the martial artist, and he's been in Taekwondo his whole life, and Muay Thai and Jiu-Jitsu. And Dana didn't appreciate a couple of street kids from Stockton that just boxed and did Jiu-Jitsu. And it's a mistake. Yeah. I'll tell you another guy he missed, Big Country. Big fat guy that can fight with any of the best heavyweights in the world. That's what guys want to see, because they're sitting on the couch. They're as fat as him, and they're thinking, I can do this too. But Dana misses that. He looks at guys like Big Country and says, oh, my God, you're a mockery. No, it's not a mockery, Dana. That's what's going to sell. I think if Dana was smart, he could have positioned Big Country for a title shot. But, he didn't. And, that's just the way it is. Promoters have human failures like everybody else,
Yeah, because remember that was the same Big Country fight. There was also Kimbo Slice was on the Tough that year, and he was looking at Kimbo Slice. But the problem with Kimbo Slice, he was just a stand-up artist. He had no other skill set. I've seen video of Kimbo used to fight. I remember the time he fought the guy Gannon, and Gannon was beating him. And that's the problem, was Kimbo wasn't a complete fighter. Then he fought that guy, Dada 3000, and that was the worst fight. I saw that fight. It was so sloppy. It was a mess. I mean, they both were out of breath. I mean, Dada, he looked like he was the black version of Roy Nelson. and and he just wasn't in good shape. I remember the guy practically, died. He said I think
He did die. He did die on the way to the hospital after that fight.
Obi Dada.
Well, he flatlined or something, and then I think they're both dead now. I think Kimbo died, and
Kimbo died,
died also.
Yeah, Kimbo died. He died like about, I think, 3-4 years ago.
Yeah, he did.
And when did Dada die?
Oh, I don't know. I mean, I heard something about Dada flatlining, but I got to tell you, Joker, comparing Dada to Roy Nelson, you got to remember something about Roy Nelson, brother. He beat Frank Mir in a jiu-jitsu match. I know we didn't see Roy Nelson on the ground much because he was such a brawler and he had an iron chin. And that's not what people want to see anyway. But Roy Nelson, as fat as he was really a complete martial artist. I think if he had gotten the right pushes, they could have made him champion. But I think what Dana felt was like, if I have this fat guy as my champion, my sport's going to be a laughing stock.
Yeah,
I can understand that.
Yeah, I think what the problem with Dana is throughout the years, he don't do his homework. He don't know how to promote right. He likes the sexy one at that moment instead of thinking of the long haul, like the YouTuber on Nelson, because that's what I'm thinking about. That's an excellent point you told Nelson, because if you see Nelson, they go, oh, he fat, but like you say, he's a well complete. He had beat fighters that people thought that they could beat him, and Dana had throughout the years he had a lot of gems that slip away.
Yeah.
Yeah, because the thing is, like Roy Nelson, he looks like the everyday dad bod. Guys at home drink beer and eat chicken. They look at the guy, hey, that guy just looks just like me. Then you got a guy like Brock Lesnar, who was hopped up. We all know he was on the juice, and he gets in. He goes and he's beating up guys. Then he gets submitted by Frank Mir. Gets beat by who else? Who beats him? I think it was Mir submitted him. I think somebody busted him up the last time. I was trying to remember. It's like a long time ago. And then he goes running back over to wrestling, because the thing was that USADA came in, and USADA was telling, hey guys, we have to test you, He said, okay, I can't do this anymore. I gotta go back to wrestling because hey, I can be on steroids. They have certain things you can't be on weed, or you can't have cocaine, can't drink too much. But hey, steroids is not a problem.
Yeah, so I'll tell you what, Grinder and Joker. I wrote a book on MMA, and one of the things you probably don't know is I grew up back east in Greenwich next to Shane McMahon and Vince McMahon, and in the '90s I had relocated to California, but people might have missed the fact that the feds went after Vince, saying he was running a business racketeering with steroids. Because Vince was a bodybuilder himself. He was even back then. Vince had to change things up overnight for the moment, at least. And what it was obviously like a push by the feds to hit Vince with a big, big fine, because the WWF was making money hand over fist. The Hogan years had taken them over the top. And I think with Dana and the Fertittas, even though very clearly they used testosterone themselves, they realized that if they didn't do the same thing Vince did, the feds were going to come in, and the feds were going to accuse them of the same thing. And that's why they got really hard with USADA. And, guys like Brock Lesnar, his whole life is on steroids. So then he doesn't really have a place. I think in his last fight where he beat Mark Hunt, they flagged him for that too. Like he got flagged for high steroids as well. And if I'm not mistaken, Mark Hunt is suing the UFC over that.
Yeah, because because one time Vince was going to try. He had a bodybuilding federation for a good minute because he was competing with he was competing with the IFBB. A couple of guys went over there for a while. Then after a while, because they were not in the best shape, their conditioning, then it fallen out. A lot of those guys had to go back to the IFBB. They had to really clean themselves up because they was getting the swole bellies. They wasn't, they were big, but they were getting the swole bellies. They stimulated abdomens. And with this, with Salah coming in, just recently you just saw a fighter by the name of the Rebel Girl, Ashley Evans Smith, just got suspended. I think this is for her second offense because she was the chick that fought a transgender fighter years ago, and I think and it's still on the back of Cyborg, who did it once. Cyborg did it once, and she changed because she was young, she didn't know better. But you have fighters that steadily do it. They just brought back a fighter, Jessica Penne, who did it at least 2 times. She was almost suspended for 2 years. T.J. Dillashaw, who got busted. I mean, you got to understand. People keep forgetting like this about steroids, especially since I do content bodybuilding. Steroids do not make you a better fighter. All it does is give you the strength and the stamina to train longer. But people don't see it like that. But the fact is, it's used for training more or less. Now, and like I said, I talk about bodybuilding. They use it in bodybuilding. The women use it to help get gains because the fact is they want to look bigger, a little more solid. And same thing with the men. But the fact is, now with USADA in the game, is you remember, it's way cleaner because you remember years ago when the Gracie's had it, and they it was like any man go. And you seen guys like big dudes and little dudes fighting each other. And then because a lot of the guys who were fighting were also military guys. And you remember the late John McCain, he went after the UFC. And then the Gracie's family had to sold it to the Fertittas and Dana White. Because you remember Dana White used to be partners with Scott Coker back in Strike Force. And then when he moved it over, Dana, he moved it over. He started up, him and Scott went in separate ways. And Scott started Bellator. And then, eventually, because, I remember he said about how Dana said that he was going to have women, but then he brings in Ronda Rousey, Misha Tate, and several other girls from Strike Force. Didn't want to bring in Cyborg for whatever reason, because, he didn't like Cyborg. But, like anything, these performance enhancers do not make you a better fighter. There's been people who've been on the shit and still get their ass handed to them.
Yeah, well, so Joker, I got to jump in. I mean, because I wrote about it in my book, and I've been around people that say that. They say, well, look, steroids don't help your chin, and they laugh as Alistair Overeem gets knocked out. I've trained with testosterone, and I can tell you this: it improves my reflexes, it improves my speed, it improves my power, improves my ability to take a punch. About the only thing that it doesn't improve is my conditioning, because it swells up your muscles, and then of course the muscles take a lot of oxygen to feed. And I think that was Brock Lesnar's problem in actual MMA as opposed to wrestling. But make no mistake, those performance enhancers are part of the game. I mean, what TJ Dillashaw got flagged for that EPO, and EPO is the antidote to the testosterone and the steroids. Like, that gives you conditioning for days. And I can tell you this, guys, my first UFC event, I had just gotten home, and my little brothers took me for my birthday, was Anderson Silva versus Chael Sonnen in Oakland. And, when Chael hit the floor, I was in the second to last row on the floor. I looked into Chael's eyes, and he looked like a deranged animal. And I knew right then, I'm like, this guy is out of his mind on something. And sure enough, after, he was flagged for just about everything. But if you think about it, it was a really brilliant move by Chael, because he took the best fighter in the world, pound for pound, and through drug use, beat the holy hell out of him. And by the way, I want to point something out. Chael didn't do anything other than walk forward and throw haymakers against a guy that knew Taekwondo, knew Muay Thai, knew boxing, knew every form of stand-up. Those drugs, when you're in the ring, turn you into a different human. Now, the question is, how do you really ban them? Because there's always going to be someone trying. And we all know about, Manny Pacquiao going from, junior flyweight all the way to welterweight. And we know that, Floyd Jr. said for a long time, I'm not fighting the guy. He's high on testosterone. And, listen, he never got caught, so I'm not going to, jump into that. But there's been legions of MMA fighters that have been caught using that stuff. And look, like any drug, it's very addictive. You start to think you can't fight without it. The biggest thing for me, I used to talk about with the guys at Scrap Pack, I'd say, it makes my chin good. And what they used to tell me is like, Derek, I think that's in your mind. And maybe to a certain extent, they're right, but the problem is, once you put a crutch under yourself, like you're used to having that extra oomph, it's really difficult to fight without it. Now, let me give you an example of a guy who was clearly addicted to drugs, was forced to go off them by USADA, and then reinvented himself, because you got to learn how to fight off drugs, and it takes time. Jose Aldo. when he fought Conor McGregor, the reason he got knocked out in 13 seconds when he hadn't lost for 10 years is because that USADA drug testing had just come in. If you look at his whole body, it's completely soft compared to the Jose Aldo we knew. But what did he do? He dropped the weight class, didn't go up, dropped the weight class because he's off the drugs, and he reinvented himself as a bantamweight. And by the way, took time. And he fights differently. I would note to you, he doesn't leg kick like he used to. I think maybe he's scared to get hurt with it. I don't know. But he doesn't leg kick like he used to at featherweight. So, yeah, man, I mean, performance-enhancing drugs in sport, they're always going to be there. And by the way, I don't think I brought it up. You mentioned Vince's WBF. I think that the feds went after Vince and the WWE right at the time that he was introducing the WBF. So he had to ask all of those guys to go have steroids. He's facing a legal situation. And that's what collapsed the WBF. But listen, he was part of that XFL too, and it didn't pan out. You know, you can be the best man in the world, and some ideas just don't work.
Yeah, we like to forget about the XSL, so that was just, And the thing is, yeah, because steroids do give you muscles, but it takes a lot of blood and air to feed that muscle. If that's why a lot of fighters are not as muscular. They're a little leaner. They come in because they don't need a lot of muscle. But I've seen some fighters like especially they say, what, he's not a fighter, that's a bodybuilder. He should be be at the Olympia competing and working on the stage. I mean, and the thing is that the sport is changing, it's evolving. It's people still like to see the smash and knocking out, but it's not just about that. If you, like I say, we talk about wrestling. I know they some fighters who are wrestlers, they call it snooze fest, but the fact is that's part of the sport. It's just not just the one thing to knock out. Yes, we like to see people get knocked out, but also you like to see when people get submitted. You like to see people get put to sleep. If you don't like, that's why with Holly Holm, that's why she was just so limited, because she didn't have that ground game. But then she has improved a bit. But the fact is, again, it's a little too late for her now. She's getting older. She's pushing. She's gonna be, I think, 40 this year. And and I've seen fighters like who just you do, sometimes you do have that moment when you do pretty good against some young fighters. But I've seen when some really much youth does has its advantages.
It does. One thing I want to point about Holly, though, which was very impressive to me, in the Ronda fight, there was a point where Ronda tried to pull her on top of her. Obviously, she was going to try to work that armbar of hers. And Holly's big physicality, she simply pushed Ronda off. Like, no, you're going to fight me on the feet. I am not going down there. And, that was very impressive. And, if you looked at Ronda for that fight, she looked a little chunky. And Holly was a big girl, a big, lithe, muscular girl. And, she wasn't having any of Ronda dragging her to the ground. So, that Olympic judo in that moment wasn't working for Ronda. But listen, man, all champions get fat and happy. You get on top for a while and you slip a little bit. And maybe it's not that much. It's like Tyson in Japan against Douglas. But you just took her off the pedal a little bit. And you gave the chance for a hungry guy to take it to you. And, that's what I think happened in Australia to Ronda. If Ronda was really top form, I think it would have been a great fight. As it was, Holly dominated that fight.
Yeah, I think with Ronda, she wasn't a complete fighter. If she needed to be with Edmund. She needs somebody to take her like, okay, Ronda, what we'll do is we'll work on your BJJ. We'll work with some Muay Thai. We're going to make you a little bit more complete. So one day you won't have to deal with girls who have the skill set to beat you. Like I saw videos where she didn't have no punching skills, and then I'm watching these news outcast thing like, Ronda could probably beat Floyd Mayweather. No, she could not. No, she could not. Christian Shields doing that same shit too, so she can beat. No, you cannot. Women are biologically different. Even a small guy like, say, Floyd's 5'8", and and Ronda's a 5'6". She couldn't beat him. Even if someone like Cyborg couldn't beat Floyd Mayweather. Yeah,
I mean, so you're talking about chemicals, right? It's the male's testosterone that, the female would really have no chance. But, people get hero worship in their mind. And that's when they start thinking those things about Ronda and Cyborg. They even did an episode of Entourage where they put Turtle in the ring versus Ronda, and Ronda beat him
That was
up.
the movie. Yeah, that's the movie.
People like that stuff, man. You know.
But the guy wasn't even trained. Now, if it's just a guy who's like maybe not even a professional, still can probably be a pro woman.
Yeah, no, listen, you're not going to get an argument out of me, Joker. And look, what I've tried to tell people too for a long time, I was at El Nino as a journeyman heavyweight when Gilbert Melendez was the best lightweight in the world. And I can tell you, like, Gilbert didn't want to spar with me. Gender is a huge one, but weight too is just too much. And we saw it with Canelo. Canelo's an amazing boxer, but as soon as he took that step up against Bivol, it was too much. But, listen, that's why people love combat sports, because it creates a superhero in their mind. And even that superhero crosses gender sometimes, like Ronda. And on my own recordings, people have been telling me that Conor McGregor can kick my butt. And I try to tell them, I said, guys, I'm 250 pounds. Conor might be able to kick my butt with a knife and a bat, but other than that, it's just not going to happen. But, people watch the stuff because they become enamored. And I get it. I mean, that's what fans do, and that's why it's popular, and that's why we get to watch it all the time. So I'm not complaining.
Gotcha.
That's what we call simping underrated. You know that.
Yeah, it's real simping. I ain't mean to cut it short, but I gotta take care of certain things. But we're gonna pick this up next week.
All righty.
And then the next week that I want to talk about, though, too, is the ins and out of MMA. I'm talking about submissions and stuff. And brother Derek, I want you to talk to that because there are some people who think that it's easy, but like you said, it takes years of dedication. And a lot of people don't want to talk. And I want to get into that next week, even the fights, but I want to talk about that. Well, me and George do talk about it more than the other brother. But I want us to get into that so people can have a full grasp of it because there's a lot of talk. They people say that they know, but they really don't know. So, brother Derek, can make your last remarks, and then George will make my last remark. I make my short remarks. We're gonna close it as a family.
Yeah, I mean, as always, guys, you can find me at Derek Alanis on Instagram, at Derek Alanis on TikTok. I talk a lot about the fight game and my book, Warrior of the Light, A Fighter's Journey Through the Rise of Mixed Martial Arts. You can get it on Amazon. On Facebook, I'm Derek Meyer Galanis. If you guys want to holler about combat sports, hit me up.
All right.
Well, folks, you know me, it's All the Way George Page. Come check me out on my channel, All the Way George Page. Tomorrow I'm doing my Muscle Talk Mondays. We talk about bodybuilding and we talk about shows, competition, stuff like that. Also take me out on my IG is Jordan MacArthur 501, and I support my man Underrated over here. He's my brother. I like to appreciate him for setting us up. We missed last week because he's a busy man. He's a busy man. He got things he got to do, and also he has Valerie.
I'm telling you, George, I'm gonna beat you up.
Well, you can watch me beat up Valerie.
Hey, that's not PG talk.
Well, I'm not too much for PG. I'm a little bit of PG-13.
Got you. Well, I will make my last mark to close it, but thank you so much. I very much appreciate it. And like we said, we're going to talk more. And then Derek, please, let people know that we do this every Saturday, Sunday at 7:05. Bring some people in so we can so it could be more of us to have these conversations of MMA. We'd be greatly appreciated. So tell all your people to come over here because this is where it's at.
I will, Grinda, and get me the videos of the one we did on boxing, and get me this video when you can, because it helps me get more people on here.
I got you. I'm gonna set you up. This one is gonna take your time, but I'm gonna set you. I'm gonna see you the one that box in a few minutes. Do you want me to send it through your IG or you want me to send it through your email?
Email be great.
Gotcha. I'm gonna send it through the email. Just let me know you got it. All right.
All right, brother. Thank you, and good meeting you, Joker.
Yeah, good meeting you too, Derek.
Okay. On that note, have a good week, and I guess number 40 be next Sunday. Hopefully, God's. Well, I don't know. Well, that's birthday week. I don't know. I might have to think about that. But if it is, I'll let y'all know. But if not, it'll be the following week and everything. But stay blessed. Be kind to each other. Stay blessed. Shout out to the people in Texas. Also, shout out the ones in Buffalo, New York, and understand that when you stand in righteousness, there always hate, but you gotta stand in righteousness. You gotta willing to fight for righteousness. If not, you know nothing be a sucker in the street. So stand for righteousness, even despite that. If you by yourself, but understand that you fight for others. Just
Also,
understand that.
Also, before we go out, let's wish Happy Memorial Day to all the veterans, the
Yeah,
people who are
definitely.
sacrificed for this
Mhm.
country, and the
Yeah.
ones who are, who are laid the ground for our freedoms. So I hope everybody enjoyed their weekend. You going to the beach or whatever. Yeah, home barbecuing. Shout out to anybody. Always we see veterans, tell them, thank you for your service.
Yeah, and please be careful, y'all. I know that you want to have a good time, and I know the COVID and stuff, but please take extra safety precaution, please. And protect yourself and protect your family, because there's still some crazy people out there, and we don't want nobody to get hurt. But please take extra safety precaution. Please, 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 because this world is a bunch of crazy people, and they still gonna be out trying to hurt us. So we try to avoid it and do whatever we can. Thank you, Derek. I'm gonna give you that boxing thing in a few minutes. All right, just give me some
Great.
time.
Take
Okay.
care, Grinder.
Dicky. So have a good weekend, everybody. Oh yeah. Rome Cabos and Haney is a week away. We're gonna talk more. We're gonna talk more of that. And Derek, you say you only on the weekends, right?
Yeah, I mean, I can do Friday, but I work nights, Grinder, so I can't really come.
Friday. So
Yeah,
Friday.
Friday, Saturday,
Okay,
Sunday.
okay, okay, okay. Who knows? I probably squeeze. Friday is the fourth, right? No. Friday's the third. Maybe okay. I see. Maybe we got squeeze boxing, and we could talk about that, because that is the most anticipated fight and stuff like that. And so we'll probably squeeze it like that. Thank y'all so much. Love
All right.
y'all. Like again, take extra safety precautions to protect yourselves at all times. On that note, this one is goes. Have a good week ahead.
All righty.